The time is just gone 9:38 a.m. as we continue with the broadcast this morning, news and views, and it's 10 years later. We unpacking a Marikana now. This still remains a highly talked about issue, but also at the same time a lot of controversy surrounding Marikana. And this morning we're joined by Eric Mokuoa. Uh, he is with the Benchmark Foundation. Eric, good morning to you, and welcome to the show.
Good morning, Aniathan. Good morning to your listeners. Thank you very much for having us.
Well, 10 years down the line, and Marikana still remains a major issue as we head towards the anniversary. And there are still many unanswered questions as far as Marikana is concerned, but also all the confusion, all the controversy. Still talking about it 10 years later. Why are we still talking about this, Eric?
Absolutely, it remains a talking point. I think from our point of view as benchmarks, we are looking at the socio-economic conditions. I mean, the conditions that led to that fateful day. Some of them are environmentally inclined, some of them are socially inclined, meaning that in the area of Marikana where you have mining, you are likely to have adverse impacts on the environment, on the health of the people, on the social sphere of the people. So we were there yesterday, and because we have done a research over 15 years back, where we had uncovered a whole lot of issues that has to do with health and social impacts that were brought in by Lonmin at the time. And when Marikana happened, the Falam Commission also affirmed some of the points that we really raised at the time, that housing was one of the issues that led to miners go on strike. And of course, the communities also, at one point before then, they had gone on strike. And it's because the conditions there now, as in 2022, have gotten worse since Sibanye got in. And this is the message we got from the residents when we were engaging with them. I mean, we were moving from one area to the next. The area close to the Kopi where you had Squela, where most of the workers were residing, remained the same. And the areas where we had, observed the leaking sewage, we were surprised to find it the same. And we are saying that, whilst you have new landlord like Sibanye, who has made a lot of promises and a lot of intentions, nothing really has changed 10 years back. But what they are attempting to change is the story itself. There is that obsession, I always says, of the current company to change the narrative, but they have no interest to change the material conditions. And of course, such talk of intentions really should not be accepted as what is happening on the ground. And this is what we are saying. After 10 years, ever since workers died, some of them really complaining about the conditions, hard conditions, socially and environmental conditions that cost them money, the conditions have not necessarily changed to the better.
Well, clearly, Eric, this is a case of social justice, of economic justice, and the injustices that have been perpetrated against the people. And we always talk about South Africa being one of the most unequal countries in the world. And we would have thought that after the tragedy of Marikana, we would have learned some valuable lessons. But from what you're saying, we haven't learned much.
Yeah, absolutely. We haven't really learned much. I mean, Marikana has been used as an example of show of inequality in many texts. I mean, Thomas Piketty wrote a book, Capital in the 21st Century. He used it, to illustrate how inequality would lead to such violence. Because inequality in itself, it's violence. It's violence on the people because I mean, it reminds me of a case of the CEO of Marikana, of Lonmin, Sibanye, sorry, who during the heat of the mine strike recently on wages, you know, um, was paid 300 million on bonuses. You see, that's the inequality we're talking about. That those who are at the helm continue to reap the fruits, continue to heavily earn, and those who are at the bottom continue to really be given crumbs that are remaining. And this is what Marikana signified. It is that the inequalities do deepen. But the 10 years again, when we think such an event would give impetus to closing gaps of inequality, but it still remains because it's not long ago when we heard about 300 million of frontmen that is getting, and they are trying, the thing about it is that there is a lot more justification on why should CEO end this much, whilst workers are asking for a minimum, really, a minimum of increase. So you still have the same. But this does not only apply to the workers because the condition suffers in Marikana, environmentally so. And and nothing really is done to reverse some of these things. We have called for an alternative economy in these areas. Marikana has been mining for many years now. Surely some of its shaft would be going towards its ends, but there is no intention to create an alternative economy that will generate income for the people who would remain there, or also that would be sustainable. I mean, in a sense, produce food, because Marikana itself was more of a farming land. You find more people who were removed from the farms there way back, and they can still go back to their farming ways, but the land still need to be rehabilitated. So such projects, which we think they would be of sustainable nature, are not even explored. You in the report, the recent report of 2021, Sibanye says that they have intention of building houses. They have, and then they says that they are in negotiations with the local municipalities to purchase some land, and they have been doing that. So we can't be talking about plannings because Sibanye seems to be planning ever since they came. And they had 13% profit increase in the last year. So meaning that Sibanye is a viable project in a sense. If it has to make such profit in the middle of a hard-hitting economy that is declining because of COVID and all that. So we seriously have a problem that the company would be stuck in planning and they don't get to implement. They don't get to get what people needs on the ground. The material change, the material conditions of the people have not, in essence, changed. People were complaining, saying, "We have children. Some of our children do go to school and finish matric, and some of them do pass very well, but the bursaries that we are expecting Sibanye to be helping with are not coming forth. Surely we do not know who are getting those bursaries." And some of them were complaining about corruption within the employment system, that those who are women are asked for sexual favors. Some people need to pay money for them to get into the employ of this mining industry. Perhaps that's a phenomenon that mining has, and it's a discussion for another day. But these are the questions that have been raised, that our lives are not improving.
Well, these
You
are
know,
valid questions, Eric, and what you're saying can't be more true. And while also looking at Marikana, while the culprits continue to make insane profits, workers are still continue to suffer. But also, when one looks at the families, the survivors of these victims and what they have been going through. And the buck stops right at the top. And even at this point in time, we hear about even the president of the country, President Cyril Ramaphosa, who has never ever apologized, according to some as well. And these are now the victims or the survivors of the victims, obviously have been faced with all this pain, with all this trauma over the period of time, adding to that, all the other issues that you are talking about, the issues of inequality, the whole question surrounding housing, the environment, all of that has impacted on their lives.
Absolutely. I mean, I for one cannot understand why President Ramaphosa, even when he has promised to go and apologize, has not done that. It's one question altogether. Uh, of course, there are psychological effects on those communities. I mean, that day where shooting happened, it followed other days where a lot more people continue to die out of the impact of that, and also the patrol of the police, which were very harsh. We really cannot understand that even when you had 34 miners died on the same day and were shot on cameras, why has never been a policeman who's on trial? We are only hearing about the injured and some of the miners who survived, who have been taken. I mean, the NPA is wanting to try them, and they have been taken from pillar to post, being frustrated with these cases, and some of them really needs to be compensated. Of course, we need to say uh, they really need to look into this. And here we are calling the NPA that, I mean, we need justice that does not see, you know, we I mean, they really need to make decisions on who to try, especially against the 34 who died, especially among the police, And the question can be, has the police force been reformed really as to the recommendation of Farm Commission? One wonders, but we have seen a lot now in the country. I mean, I cannot say much about it. I mean, the action of the police in this country speaks for itself. I cannot say more. I cannot say further. So we are calling the NPA to really try to look into this case of Marikana and find the perpetrators within the police rank. Some of them were hearing that they have their employ in the mining, some of the mining companies in the area, like Teresa Mine. So there are those rumors and talks of securities being employed in those companies, because mining companies have always thrived on using force, and perhaps the economic adage that says the more risk you have, the more returns you get. That's what they are playing on. But the issue here for us, with regard to that, they were saying, with regard to the cases that happened, you were saying those who are really people who are victims, they must be looked at as such and should not be terrorized by case. And those police people who were involved in shooting recklessly and the miners, they need to face the might of the law. And we are wondering, why is the law being very slow on them, or there is no attention or a spotlight on the police who were involved in that.
Well, Eric, thank you very much for that and for your time with us this morning. We certainly will follow developments, but for now, we appreciate you taking time out, talking to us this morning. All the best to you.
Thank you very much, Inet. Thank you to our
Eric
listeners.
Mokuoa, Benchmarks Foundation, with us this morning. We're going to go for a break. We'll be back.